to you. You're watching Niger Live Television with me, Henry Ahamuefula. Thanks for billion naira in quarter 3, 2025. Rises 10.66% quarter on quarter. That's a story you get on page 29 of the Daily Independent paper this morning. Tinubu also directs immediate paper. An unusual US-Israel attack on Iran. Petrol hits 960 naira per litre in Abuja and 935 naira in Lagos. There times for us in the list. And above the masthead is a story around Wale Edun. It's a mountain of roadblocks for tax collection. Finance Minister of State. Story of the paper. That case, 3 doctors have now been suspended, and the case has been responding. Well, the details of all these are contained on the Disney paper this morning. 100,000 U.S. citizens. I mean, the Middle East. How first time saw as successors. He's talking about the strikes he had done to Iran. Mass funeral rather held for children killed in the Middle East. That particular story there. Well, I leave that story right to the Vanguard paper this morning, where in the Middle East war, the Vanguard is reporting. In the Middle East war, the Vanguard is reporting homes and factories are hard hit as fuel prices are rising. On page 5 of its paper, and crude oil prices leap further to $84 per barrel. These sufferings of the public, says OGSPA. All right, and this morning, all right, El-Rufai, ICPC, all right, doctors over death of Chimamanda's son. That's a story you get on page 6 of the Vanguard. We already have seen that story on other papers. Page 6 of the Vanguard. We already have seen that story on other papers we reviewed this morning. But RTC gets new state chairman actually. Yeah, that's a story of the 2027 polls. In Bayelsa also there is a new APC chairman. Just yesterday we had the news, right, of the new APC chairman in Bayelsa State. We're bringing you details of that on our bulletin, of course. And Tinubu nominates oil real quick. And of the lead story, it's the APC congresses that line up behind Tinubu. You want to get details into that. There's a little intro on the Daily Trust paper, so where you get it, find that an interesting read also. Let me take it again. APC congresses line up. You'd get on the Daily Trust if you get a copy. Is around Gombe APC adopting President Tinubu as sole presidential candidate in 2020. Men suspending Christian pilgrimage over Middle East crisis, right? And the El-Rufai saga is also on the Daily Trust paper. DSS detains security agents over alleged bribery. Would you look at this? Get a copy of the Daily Trust paper and find out more details. Hits 18 states, 28 health workers infected. That's on page. Lassa fever hits 18 states, 28 health workers are infected. This is a time when we have to start, doing something. What is that? In Benue State, a crisis in the APC in Benue State. So that's like the fourth paper we've reviewed that's taken that story. And alcohol responsible for banditry and kidnapping. NAFDAC is saying this story on the Nigerian Tribune. This is as they are defending the sachet ban. I don't exactly know how to take this story. In the sachet, I feel maybe it's because of something the sachet could do to the content of the alcohol, and so well it should be stopped. Well, you may want to find details into this particular story because well, this is clearly not all of it. So page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune gets you access to that. Get a copy of the Nigerian Tribune and you get details into that. Pretty shocking and interesting read if you ask me that, right? On page 27 there is a story around the conservative Anglican bloc. Trying to elect rival leader in Abuja. That's a story you find. Rival leader in Abuja. That's a story you find there also. Also, the story on DSS arresting 5 security operatives over El-Rufai's failed arrest at Abuja Airport. El-Rufai's failed the rest. El-Rufai's failed the rest at Abuja Airport. That was before he honored the invitation of at Abuja Airport. That was before he honored the invitation of the agency. Pages 3 and 4 has that story. It's called The Riders, Ex-Kaduna Governors and Malami Probes. I think that's the first daily paper this morning, paper that I like to think is indigenous to Bayelsa, right? And beside the nameplate 2027, no northerner should contest against Tinubu. That's coming from Governor Fintiri. And well, on the Middle East, which we're currently getting petrol in Bayelsa, which we're currently getting petrol in Bayelsa. We'll get you that report too. Yeah, well, petrol prices are climbing as Middle East tensions shake global oil market. That's the lead story of the first daily paper this morning. And there is also another story on Nigeria's VAT revenue hitting 2.28 trillion naira in Q3, and it's up like 10 points. February salary over sit-at-home absences. Okay, the Anambra State Governor Soludo is pretty tough and serious with his talk against the sit-at-home and those who intend to honor it. This is clearly for civil servants who did not go to work over sit-at-home. And well, the story there is reporting that the traders at the market get a call into that story. Too late. Trump declares Iran's military and leadership gone. Well, the confidence, right? And that confidence sadly has been playing out in the past 5 days. The masthead, federal government holds Israel pilgrimage, cautions Nigerians. Demonstration is again on that paper. More cash in economy pushes banks borrowing costs down after CBN raid court. Female tenant abducts 3 siblings in a boy 24 hours after parking in. Clearly we have to be careful now with those who are moving into your neighborhood, those who are moving into your compound. You should be very careful. And landlords also should be careful, clearly, right? This is a story, a sad story too, of a female tenant who abducted 3 siblings in a boy only 24 hours after they moved in. They moved in just for this abduction. Sad, truly. Power crisis. Okwebulu meets stakeholders, advocates, brother engagement is a story you find also on the Daily Sun paper this morning. The Punch is reporting on the tax law as its lead story. It says value-added tax hits record 1 trillion naira as new sharing era begins. It says states, local governments pocket 903 billion naira on the revised revenue sharing formula. Federal government's share drops to 10% as subnationals gain larger slice. Lagos leads with 111 billion naira value-added tax allocation in January. These are all riders to that late story there. Above the nameplate, you have the story on Tinubu nominating Oyedele as minister, and also another story on the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, as customers are to get 20 billion naira meter refunds from discos. We had this conversation the other day, and we had this argument whether it is supposed to be the customers who are to purchase this, as it's prevalent around Nigeria. Well, this is a story that may shed light into that particular debate, whether it is the customers who are supposed to bear the brunt, the financial brunt of purchasing meters, or it is in fact the discos. Well, clearly the NEC is making a statement there where it says on page 11 of the Punch that the customers are to get 20 billion naira meters refund from distribution companies. Get the paper to get details into that particular story. RFI is also making it to the Punch paper, but I'll skip RFI's story and get to that's closer to us. On page 8 of the Punch paper, they're reporting on Rivers Assembly beginning screening of 9 Fubara commissioner nominees. Yet another commissioner nominees from the governor of Rivers State and the Rivers Assembly are beginning screening of these nominees. And that's the story you get on page 8 of the Punch paper this morning. Federal government bans cash tax collections and revenue roadblocks. Also makes it there. Baby factory, Ondo couple jailed 14 years. Israel-Iran tensions, airlines lose over 7.5 billion naira amid grounded flights. This is only 5 days into the war. Only 5 days into the war, 7.5 billion naira has been lost. How much would be lost when it maybe goes into a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? We can just even wait for the end of this war. For this war to come to an end, right? We definitely can. I'll check out the Blueprint paper real quick, and they're also reporting on the Middle East war. I skip that to that of the division within the Anglican community in Nigeria. It says Anglican divisions deepen as rebel clerics pick rival to first female leader. It's a story you get on page 15 of the Blueprint paper this morning. Above the nameplate, Iran, 59% Americans disapprove, think long-term conflict likely. That's a poll, all right? Clearly, Americans are not entirely in support of this decision of the U.S. president. And so 59%, a poll is saying this, 59% of Americans disapprove of these conflict, and they think that there is a possibility that this could be a long-term conflict. Well, clearly it is not Venezuela. It is not Venezuela, even though there have been successes. The U.S. and Israel may have claimed some successes, with the killing of the top Iranian leaders, right? But clearly it's not Venezuela. And it just may last longer than U.S. and Israel had intended for it to last. Away from the Blueprint paper, The Guardian, faulty design, vandalism, neglect endangers $3.4 billion rail overhaul is a story you get on page 6 of the Guardian paper, right? Farmer header clashes claim 3,000 lives, displays 300,000 in 5 years. Federal government approves AI, robotics, coding, cybersecurity centers in 6 varsities. These are stories you get of the Guardian paper. Omahi, Ohiri Bika over allegation as Horiwa demands probe. That's also a story that's interesting. It's been in the last 2 weeks, we've seen that story. She was also incarcerated at some point, but the release has been secured. Moyo Sare somehow made for that to happen. But it's a story that's interesting. So you like to get details of that story. It's on page 7 of the Guardian paper this morning. Well, let's check out the Matrix Sport, and that's where our curtain will fall for this day's paper review. It says NPFL, Rangers best in the league. Ikechukwu is boasting. Ilechukwu, I beg your pardon, is boasting. All right. On the English Premier League, Wolves stun Liverpool. Everton secure first home victory in 2026. Would you look at that? Who are the Everton fans? This is some charities for you. I like to think so. Okay, friendly Super Falcons floor Cameroon 3-1 in Yaoundé is also a story that makes it to the Matrix Sports paper this morning. That's pretty much the stories that should interest you on the Matrix Sport this morning, and that's where our curtain will fall on the papers review this morning. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the papers. My name is Henry Ahamuefula. Thank you so much for staying with Niger Live Television.